Dith da, as they say in my part of the world, and welcome from me, Martin Smith, aka Cornish Grandad, to my YouTube channel. I trust you're well and interested in adding some more objects to our kitchen scene. Today we will create a glass jug, which we build on our experience creating the mug in the previous tutorial. In this tutorial, we'll extrude the glass bowl using our reference image and spin the handle as we did last lesson. Then explore the glass material, which involves transparency and the new volume shader. Adding water can be tricky. It does, however, add an object with refraction into our scene. So we'll talk about how to manage the additional reflections and refractions. This is the fifth in our series on Blender Basics, and today we are going to create a glass jug filled with water, which will introduce some interesting problems. Now, up to now I've been explaining every single step I've done. What we'll do is we'll actually I won't explain in detail all the steps, and the reasons why are twofold. Firstly, that you should have become reasonably proficient with the basic steps, and if you haven't, you might like to either restart the series or do the introductory one on the teddy bear and the cards at the top. And the second reason is if you blindly follow instructions, then you won't be learning. You need to be working out why and how to do something, and if you have a problem or you make a mistake, pause the video. Great thing about YouTube is, one is you can pause it, and two is you can go back and start again. And the good technique sometimes is actually just to play something slightly slower. So I'll always have the screencast tools on the bottom right hand corner, and if you miss a step you can just see what I've done. So already I have loaded into my scene an image. Here it is. Let's have a quick look at that image. It's a simple jug. I put the link in the description, but I found this jug and it's about 20 centimeters high. So I've scaled my picture to 20 centimeters high, and I have got rid of, cleared the rotations and scales, and then scaled it 20 centimeters high using the measurement tool. So here's my picture. If I look at it from the right hand side, it is positioned on or just in front of the 3D cursor, and I would normally move it a little bit further back than that, so when we build our jug here it won't be in the way. Okay, now a useful technique to know is the slash key, which is the one with the question mark above it, will hide everything but your selected object, so we can just focus on creating this jug. Go to front view. Now this isn't a cylinder, it isn't a sphere, it isn't a cube, so we're going to use a technique which is the repeated extrude, scale, rotate, extrude, scale, rotate technique to build up this jug from the base upwards. So let's just get in nice and tight. First off, we're going to add a mesh and we're going to add a circle. That is far too big, it's probably got too many things. Like in the mug, we're starting with 18 vertices. We'll take the scale down to, I don't know, about 0.1. Let's have a go. Right, doesn't matter, it's not quite right. But there's our, going to be this baseline of this jug. Let's scale this in on, so it is the same size as the mug, and it's quite difficult to see this actually at some points. That'll do. Perhaps I need to take my picture down a fraction. Go to edit mode, E to extrude just on the Z axis, off to the base, scale it out but leave the Z as it is, so shift Z, E, Z, shift, so S, shift Z, and just following the lines up, E, Z, S, shift Z, E, Z, S, Shift Z, pull it out. One technique that's quite useful is, if you want to get it very precisely, is if you hold the Shift button down as you move the mouse, so you can get more precise control. I'm now going to speed up the next step until we get to this point here. Okay, so see you in a bit. So now we have the point where we seem to have a slope here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend this up so it's roughly halfway between the height and there, and then we can rotate that around. So now we need to pull this out to make the spout, won't we? So looking at the top view, we need to be grabbing that edge there by the looks of it. Make sure we've got the right edge. Okay, looks good to me. And we're going to put proportional editing on. We can grab this, we can pull our proportional editing circle in. Do you remember on the top left it shows you where that proportion is, and I'm just going to grab it on the x-axis. And I'm going to pull my circle in, move it a bit more, and pull my circle in, and move it even a bit more. It's beginning to get the shape. I probably need to do the same. I probably need to pull that one out a bit more. So GX. Still got proportional editing on. GX. Get in there, and I'm going to pull that edge down. I think I get the right edge. Make sure you pick the right edge. You've got the x-axis here to help you. Get in there. I think I would like to pull that point and that point. Pull those up and forward slightly, I think. It's getting there. I think it probably needs to be a bit more pronounced, so I'm going to select that edge. And I'm going to grab that a bit more on the x-axis, I think. Okay, so we have our rough shape of our jug. It is totally hollow, so we need to go and address this base here now. And if you look at your picture, it's a bit hard to see, it actually bows up slightly. So I'll select the bottom, don't forget Alt to select the ring. Get a bit tighter. I'm going to extrude, size that in a little bit. That's good. So now I can grab that and move that up. I don't need proportional editing on. And I'm going to extrude it again on the Z axis. I'm going to size it in quite a bit. So we've now got a bit of a dome forming. Probably needs to be a bit stronger. I'll move that in a minute. And I'm going to face fill that with a grid fill. So there we go. I think I would like to, let's leave it like that. Probably need an edge loop around here, I think, don't you? I think I've just got in too far, so we could do a loop cut and slide on here. Whoops. Right. So we have a basis of our jug. So we can apply a solidify modifier to this now. And we'll go, what, about 3 millimeters? The jug's got to be reasonably sturdy, I guess. And we can add a subdivision surface modifier as well. I'm going to do a level 2. And if we look at that in preview mode, we've got a reasonable looking jug here. Now remember, the next step is to create the handle. To create the handle, we need to apply the solidify modifier. So if you're happy with that, apply that. So now we have our solidified and smoothed objects. We need to add our handle. So just as we did before, we're going to add a, we'll do this in edit mode. We're going to add a circle. Let's create it down there. It's about 7 millimeters thick. I think we'll have 8 vertices as we did last time, and not fill it with anything. There, it's down there. So we can rotate that now through the y-axis 90 degrees, and then we can grab it on the Z, put it up. We can grab it on the X, and we're going to grab it on the Z. And the reason I'm making sure that I am not moving, I don't want to move it away from its correct orientation against this object. And I'll pull in just a little bit. So if you look at it on side view, I need to go, I'm probably going to bridge both of those. I think if we look at our picture again, it does splay out quite a bit, so we're going to bridge it across both of those, and we're going to bridge this one across multiple ones down here. So let's look at it again on the side view, and I want to bring it down a fraction, don't I, so it can bridge across both of those faces there. Okay, so go back into front view. And now I can spin this. So before I spin it, I need to move the 3D cursor to about the right point, which might be a bit of trial and error. We're going to guess is there. Go to our spin tool and spin it. That's a pretty good guess, I think. You might find you want to undo it. Try it again, undo it, try again until you get what you want, but that's a pretty good guess. Let's just check we've got everything square. I like that. Yep, I like that. So we can then go in, and I'm going to delete these 2 faces here. Right click, delete. Sometimes it's difficult with shade smoothing on to see what happens. You've got an option here to actually get rid of shade smoothing temporarily, which makes life a bit easier. Yep, okay. So I'm going to bridge, Alt edge mode, bridge that to these ones here. Oh, I missed that. Shift, Alt, click that one. There we go. Right click, bridge. And we can try the same thing here. I'm not sure. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to rotate this edge here, won't we? So we're going to rotate that slightly. I think I can probably get all. Do I need to? It's more bulbous down here, so it's probably those two faces I need to get rid of, I think. So I can Alt, I can select that loop, I can Shift, Alt and select that loop, and I can bridge. Let's look at that with shade smoothing back on. How does that look in solid view? Go in object mode. Okay, it's a bit of a weird artifacts here. And what's causing those? I've probably got too many. Probably delete some of these faces, I think, probably. Dissolve edge. And the same on that side, I think. And I can probably get rid of that one as well. And that one there. It's creating some weird topology, as you can see. It'll probably do. Okay, so we have our basic jug. So we can hide our picture now. We don't need that one, which is in the way, or you could delete it if you want. So we need to create some materials for this object. So let's go to a material tab, create a new, I'm going to call it glass because we might have more glass objects later on. It should be pure white. It's not metallic, it is very smooth. And if we go down here, we've got some options. The transmission of glass should be about 1.45. We'll explain this again in a minute. And its transmission value should be 1. So we'll whack that all up to 1. And suddenly yours might look different, depends what background pictures you've got, but you've now got a clear object. Notice at the top of here we've got the surface option. If we hide that one for a minute, there's also a volume option here. We haven't got anyone set up at the moment, and we will change this to a volume shader, principled volume. And the only thing we need to change on here is this density number needs to go up, and it's about 30. It seems to work for me. So it's now got some volume as well. Your image, glass image, may look very different to this. That's because I have an HDRI turned on, which is giving a background pattern. So if you click here at the top where it says shading, yours probably looks something like that. You'll have a different background. If you turn off screen lights and screen world, you can then select from the HDRIs you've loaded. So an HDRI is a high dynamic range image. I kind of imagine it's an image that wraps around your scene and can supply light to your scene. So I've clearly selected one with some trees or background in it. Let's pick a different one. You get a different view, but it's supplying light to your scene. I'll probably pick that one, I think. There we go. So it's because I've got a highly reflective glass object, it's reflecting that light from the HDRI. It makes it look far more interesting. Now Blender comes with two different engines to render your image. The first one's called Eevee, and this is a very fast raster image system, which is probably what you've got turned on at the moment. So if you click on this little camera icon, I've currently got Eevee set up. The other one is called Cycles. We'll ignore Workbench, it's an old-fashioned one. Is a ray path engine, so it tends to give accurate images, particularly things like glass, etc. Shoots out lots of photons out of the camera that you're looking at, bounces it around the scene, and then records what comes back. And it takes a while to create a nice image. Up here, it's doing. It tends to be a far more accurate image when it's finished. At the moment we've been working in Eevee, and Eevee, as I said, is a very fast raster render engine. And part of the reason it's fast is they turn things off that we're not using. And if you look on the list down here, we've got a thing called screen space reflections. If you tick that and turn that on, and then turn refraction on, you'll get a far better image of your glass object. But it's actually taking longer to generate the image now. My screen's flickering, I don't know, depends upon your speed of your machine and whatever. There we go, that's the difference between the two engines, and that's what we need to do. We need to turn screen space reflections and refractions on to work with our glass object. So we now have our jug completed, and we need to fill it with some water. So we go to edit mode, we can go to circle select, or you could use the shortcut key W. We can zoom in, and in face mode we could start selecting the internal faces, but you can see you can't really see what you're doing, and the reason is that the subdivision modifier is on and it's just confusing the image. So you can turn it off for the render. I don't know why you'd ever want to do that, or for the vision, or just for editing, which is where we are at the moment. And we can start selecting our, you want to pick the edge height at which you want the water to be, and go around there, hold down the shift button, and just keep selecting. Now if you make a mistake and go too high, as I have there, easiest way is to turn off your circle select temporarily, the shift button still down, deselect those, and then turn your circle select back on, which you could use W for if you want, and just go around. This is going to be a bit slow and tedious, so I'm going to speed up this section until I've highlighted all these areas. Right, so now I have all my water selected. I'm going to turn off circle select with W, and what I want to do now is create a new water object. So I'm going to do mesh, duplicate. Whatever you do, don't move it, because otherwise it'll come out. So as I've moved it, I'm just going to hit escape. That will return it back to where it is. And now I want to separate it from my jug, so I'm going to do mesh separate by selection. And notice I've now got two circles. Go to object mode, we can see what those are. The first circle is the jug. Let's name that jug. The second circle is the water, so I can rename that water. And now I can actually hide my jug temporarily because I don't want to see it. I just want to see the water. Okay, so back in edit mode, I can now close the top of this off. So in edge, alt select, face, grid fill. And now I can turn my subdivision surface modifier back on. Oh, notice what's happened straight away. You've got this curve at the top here. So what's happening is that the subdivision surface modifier is trying to smooth between that edge there and that edge there, and it's creating this curve effect, which is not what we want. So the way to get rid of that is we'll add a loop cut and slide, and as you see, as I move it up and down, as I move it higher and higher up, that curve disappears. So I've now got a nice smooth object, water object. So we can turn my jug back on, and let's add some. I should have all my materials already selected for this. If I look, because yes, it's come through as a glass object. It's not quite true. It should be water object. So we could add a new one and give it a new water object, but create a new object and we call it water. It is a principal shader. It's all okay because it's picked up everything. That roughness should be down there. Let me see where we got to. The index reflection of water is 1.33 and it should be fully transmissible. So there we go. That's the surface done, and the volume, we'll add a principled volume shader as we did last time. Color should be pure white, and that should do. There we go. So if we look at that in fully rendered mode, we're still in Eevee. So if we turn that to cycles and wait for cycles to update. Now Cycles has finished rendering that image and it looks okay in parts, but other parts really don't look quite right. And the reason is that we've got too many reflections and refractions. Take you a little lesson about reflection and refraction. Back to school with a physics lesson. Let's have a quick recap on reflections and refractions. As you know, some objects reflect light. Our silver bowl is a beautiful example of something that is reflective. Here we see a single beam of light heading towards a surface. The light hits the surface, where it bounces off the surface and is reflected back. So that is reflection. Some objects let light through them, such as water and glass. When the light hits the surface, it is bent. Again, as it leaves. This is refraction. Different materials have different refractive indices. Materials refract light or bend it to varying degrees. The commonest ones we meet are water, which bends it at 1.33, and glass, somewhere between 1.5 and 1.7. When light hits an object that is semi-transparent and not a perfect reflector, then the result is a combination of reflection and refraction. Some light is reflected and some is refracted. Now in our water jug we have the following: a glass object and a water object. Light reflections and refractions in abundance. The issue is that we've got a gap, however minute, between the glass and the water, creating additional reflections and refractions. So the technique we use in CG is actually to remove that gap by slightly expanding the size of the water so that it is actually inside the glass. Physically impossible, but that's how we break this multiple reflections. So as you can see, with the gap removed, mind the gap, the amount of spurious reflections and refractions have disappeared, but we still end up with a reflection and a refraction, and we end up with reflection at the water phase as well. As we've learnt, what we need to do is we need to resize this water. Let's just turn it off cycles because it takes too long to render. We're going to select our water object in edit mode, and we're going to size it up. If you select all of these in one go, so I'm just holding shift down, we can make it 1% bigger, 1.01, all three are updating simultaneously. Let's render that in cycles and see if that looks any better. Hopefully you can see that's a much clearer image than it was before. So now we can place our jug on the table, and then I'll set you a little bit of homework. So let's go to solid mode. We'll return everything back, so that's the slash key, so we can see everything. We put snapping tool on, we can grab our, oh no, we need to parent our jug and water together again, don't we? So jug and water, sorry, jug and water, parent object, there we go. So they're parented together now, so I can grab that and I can stick that up there on the table somewhere roughly. There we go. We now have a jug of water sitting on our table. So let's turn snap on. What I'd like you to do now, if you, for homework, is to create a wine bottle and some wine, a couple of wine glasses. I would suggest you don't fill the wine bottle with liquid. If you make the glass green, then you won't be able to see inside in any case. And you can place some red wine in the wine glasses if you like. Hope to see you soon. Hope you've enjoyed our session and learned something about reflection and refraction. If you have, then please support this channel by clicking like, and if you want to see more of the videos, click the subscribe button. I'll put the link to the next video in the series, Nodes and Textures, on the screen. If you have been, thanks for listening and keep in touch.